Here we go. 1, 2, 3, smile. Hello, it's Michael Gunther with Collaboration Business Consulting. I'm really excited to have one of our other senior consultants, Rick Berard, here today to talk about strategy and planning. Now, there is a distinction, but most people don't know it. And most people are doing strategies, plans, which are really implementation plans. And do you know the difference? And to really grow that scalable business and profitable business you want, we have to be able to understand the difference and really put the systems in place and the plans in place to allow you to reach your goals. So first of all, just as a reminder, we're Collaboration Business Consulting. We've worked with over 500 businesses in their growth, have trained thousands of managers and assisted hundreds of businesses get started. And truly our mission is to inspire, educate, and empower proactive leaders to achieve breakthrough performance. So we hope today you'll learn some things that will help you have some breakthrough performance in your business. So the first thing is strategic planning. You know, Rick, it's so funny. You and I both probably have 30 years of management between us. I've seen all kinds of strategy and plans, and most strategic plans are not strategic plans, right?
Of course not.
Yeah, and so most leaders, they spend all this time doing these plans. Sometimes they never look at them again. They get their teams involved. They sit on the shelf and collect dust. I know I've experienced that. I'm sure you have. And really, why do most entrepreneurs and business leaders, why do they get mixed up between what is strategy plan and implementation plan? And often it's because, think about this, leaders have grown up and business owners, entrepreneurs have grown up in their business being problem solvers. So they're assuming when they're doing the strategic plan, we should be solving all the issues within our business. So they become very tactically oriented, very problem solving oriented versus truly a strategic plan. Reminds me of one of our clients, this guy Ryan from a company called Nevada. Yeah, this whole balance challenge that we're calling a strategic plan, it was really an implementation plan. He goes, this isn't strategy, this is implementation. And he was right on. And it's really what we're talking about doing. It's helping you distinguish what's a strategy versus what's an implementation plan. And that's the challenge that most people have.
No, and I would add, Michael, it feels so good to solve problems. That's an important part of being a business person, but it's not the same thing as strategy.
Yeah, and I think that's a good element. Why don't we have you talk a little bit about that, actually? What is strategy?
Well, it's funny. Early on in my career, I worked with someone and they said the key to good strategy is to look strategic. And he said,
you look kind of strategic.
Well, no, you need to look out reflexively. Very key thing is to have the chin. Well, do all that. But it's interesting with this particular slide. What is strategy? The answer actually is strategy is the what. And we're going to talk about that. Strategy being the what you need to achieve. Implementation being the how to achieve it. But we went back and looked at the dictionary for a good place to come up with.
Good old Webster's, right?
And Webster said strategy is a careful method, interesting choice of words there, careful method for achieving a particular goal, usually over a long period of time.
It's kind of interesting that word careful too, because most business owners are probably wanting to rush it and get it done.
Right.
But it really needs to be a methodical process to do it well, right? Yeah. I think also it's interesting when we talk about strategy, again, we all love problem solving, but really it's really taking a step back and we're going, where do we actually want to play? So when you think about strategy, Rick, you know, there's some different types of leaders who have different approaches to strategy.
Right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of those?
Well, over my career, I've been involved in working with different types of people, and generally we found that there are 3 different types of people that ultimately are involved in creating a strategy. First people are the visionary people. These are the people that know the value of strategy, but they never actually develop it. I think of these people as the daydreamers.
Oh yeah.
These are the people that definitely have the chin.
And they have it in their head where they want to go, but it never kind of makes it the paper or the implementation.
Exactly. And then the second types of people are actually the creatives. These people know how to create strategy. They actually do a good job of creating strategy. The plans they develop are very elegant plans. In fact, they're so elegant, they probably end up in an academic journal somewhere, but they're not something that's able to be implemented. And the third one that we have is the doers. These are the people that know how to take strategy and know what strategy is, create the bridge from strategy to implementation, And these are the people that actually are going to have breakthrough performance.
So,
We'd like to see these people.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Rick, too? Can a visionary become a doer?
I would think that they can, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you bet. And
Yes.
so really, as you think of your own strengths, you might want to think where you're playing in this. We see a lot of visionaries and a lot of creators as clients. They're the big picture thinkers. Some of them are, they get it, they know where they want to go, and they struggle sometimes in really fine-tuning what that strategy is. And then often, again, they're on the implementation side. One thing I want to bring up too, you notice the right-hand bar over here, talks about strategic plans guide the company's overall strategy. Implementations plan provides the roadmap on how to get there. And as you remember from some of our other earlier webinars, the why of all this is, start with why. What is your vision, your mission, your core values, or where you're going? The strategy comes next, and then the implementation plan. So when you look at these areas of being the visionaries, the creators, and doers, you just might want to think about where you play in this area, because at the end of the day, to build a scalable business, become an entrepreneur who is having breakthrough performance, you got to have some doers. It may not be you, maybe it's someone on your team you've hired to help support you to do that.
Right. Now, I would also add in on the implementation side, people feel comfortable there because that's a process that they're used to doing. Thing is, good strategy follows a process as well, and I think that's where you're going to take us to next.
Yeah, in fact, there is a great article on the Big Life Strategic Planning Harvard Business Review. And there's a strategy should only be focused on two things. And the first one is customer targeting, or who you're going after, why are you going after that marketplace, who are they, the demographics, what are their issues that they're faced with, how are they playing in the marketplace, how large is that marketplace, and really understanding the customer and the customer needs. The other one is then, once you have that, is really looking what value can you bring them compared to competitors? What offering are you going to truly bring? Now, we've all heard of value proposition and client profile, right? But this is actually taking it to another level. This is actually, do you have raw data that is actually allowing you to determine and analyze who your customers are, how much should they spend on your type of service or offering? How much, I don't care if you're a small business or a large business, if you don't understand who you're going after, you're probably wasting marketing dollars, service dollars, energy, and not really understanding how you're going to really play in that marketplace.
Yeah, the term I would bring up is insights is really what we're talking about here. It means from a customer standpoint, you know that customer so well. You probably know what the issues they're going to be facing in the future that maybe they even don't know yet, because you've done the research and you really understand what makes them tick. And based upon that, you know what is the right value proposition that's going to match up with them.
Because once you have that, then messaging is easy, right? Because you know their pain points, so you can put your marketing messaging. Selling's easier,
right?
Because you're going to ask the questions that are going to uncover those issues you already know they have,
right?
And how your products help benefit solving those issues for them.
But the key to doing that is you're making choices to get to this point. And choices also mean not just what you're going to do, but what you're not going to do.
Oh, I think that's an interesting element.
Yeah.
Because I think companies are always saying they need to add things, right? And we got to add this new offering for our clients. Right. We got to add this new tool for our clients, because they need it. Or they have one client requesting it, so they assume everybody wants it.
Right.
And I don't know if you've experienced that. We've experienced that. In fact, we go through this process on an annual basis. We're going through it right now. Rick and Kristen on our team is going through it, where we're redefining targeting. And every year we're shaving off some of the services we used to offer and evaluating other ones we might need to add based on what we see going on in the marketplace and what our clients need and what we can offer.
And I would also add, in terms of customer targeting, I've talked with some people that feel like they're giving up some business by only targeting certain customers, and they want to be open to every customer out there. But what we've learned and what we teach is that you can't be everything to everybody. That's not what strategy is. Strategy should make you feel uncomfortable because you're not in charge now. Your customer is actually the one that's making the decision, because that's the one who's bringing you revenue. And so figuring out who is the right customer for you is very important to developing a good strategy.
Now, Rick, I know you have a lot of background in biotech and helping to build companies and be part of that team to grow it. And So I imagine when you're investing into pharmaceuticals or in biotechnology, that understanding what your client needs must be huge before you can even go to the marketplace at what to present, right?
Yeah, oh yes, I could not emphasize that enough, Michael. Really understanding the marketplace and where you're going. And it has to be a fact-based understanding. Usually within your organization, there's experience of people that know an awful lot, but many of those experiences are bringing biases in. And you need to ask yourself through this process, as you're determining where to make your choices, is that a fact that we're considering here, or is that just somebody's opinion?
You know, it's really interesting. We had a client we were working with, and they actually went and surveyed some of their top clients, and what they thought, what they value was so different than what the client thought. In fact, the client was looking at rolling out some new tools in their software system. The clients didn't even care about.
Right.
And our customer was thinking, oh my God, our clients are going to love all these bells and whistles. The client wasn't solving anything. In fact, it was going to make their software more complex.
Right.
And so it has to be fact-based decisions. So part of a strategic plan is not a quick process. It's about really gathering the data and to be able to understand where you want to play and what value you want to have. Because most of us, when we go to strategic planning, we want a quick process. How are we solving these problems? How are we going to get to this financial goal? How are we going to get to this profitability? And they start trying to implement and problem solve their current operation before really spending the time they need to really understand their strategy.
Yeah, and you've got a limited amount of resources. So that's why the choices you make are going to be so important. The more facts you can bring in to help you make those choices, the better off the process is going to go.
You can kind of hear his Boston accent too. It's kind of cool. All right. So the next thing for solutions for strategic planning, keep it, stay straightforward with it. Keep it simple. A good strategy could be a one-pager. It could be outlined on one page. You could be able to communicate it. This isn't how you're going to do it. This is what are we doing in the value proposition arena. It's not the steps and the implementation. So stay straightforward with it. Also, don't look for answers. Rick had mentioned earlier, it should make you uncomfortable. These should be a strategy that could be market disruptive. It could be making you stand out different from from the industry, your competitors. But don't try to solve it yet. Get it clear that this is how we're playing in the marketplace. And then the last one is really use clear logic. What is meant by that? And it's really about make it clear what you're trying to do and or how you want to play in that marketplace. Make it simple. Make it clear so anybody on your team can understand it. Because if we have this clear strategy, it's easier to get to the implementation.
And I've been involved in so many strategic planning sessions where it was so complex, it just didn't make any sense. That's why if you follow these 3 simple rules, especially the last one, if you can't put down in writing in simple wording what your strategy is, then you probably don't have the right strategy.
Yeah, and again, most people get their strategy mixed up with their implementation plan. Right. So they feel like, hey, I have my 5-year strategic plan, or I have my 3-year strategic plan. Well, yeah, you got an implementation plan, but are you really clear on a strategy? No, it was interesting. I had mentioned earlier, we were just updating this, but a couple of years ago, we actually brought something in to help us get clear on our strategy, and it allowed us to get clear. And I think there's a value to having someone from an outside facilitator to come in. Obviously with all our clients, that's what we do at the beginning of our process, because we need this to understand how to build your business and what's not working to help you get to that strategies. So the next thing is about the implementation plan, which most of you probably call strategic plans. But Rick, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, the implementation plans, I think, follow the 4.
Oops, right here. Sorry, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, so the implementation plan really follows the strategy when you move forward. And when we put together the implementation plans, really it's the 4 keys to a business in terms of sales and marketing, finance and legal, operations and production, and management and HR.
All right, so what we call these are really the cornerstones. So now that we have this strategy in place, where are the areas in each one of these components, cornerstones, that you need to improve, change, enhance, in order to allow you to achieve that strategy. So when we talk about the goals, so you have now financial goals and sales goals and improvement in operation efficiency, and you can have turnover goals, not turnover, retention goals, you want to lower turnover if you have a high. But you can start defining goals based on this strategy. And then on top of that, what are other things we need to improve from a process and structure and our skill set of our team in order to achieve these measurements that will help support the strategy that you define. Again, people usually get these things mixed up. And so if you get it mixed up, at least you're doing a plan, but you're probably focused more on problem solving than actually proactive growing your business. You know, there is a belief that if you can get the focus out ahead of you first of where you want to go and then come back and say, how can we get there? You'll create a stronger plan than if you focus on the problems you need to solve and build a plan around that. And again, most of us are problem solvers. So you're good problem solvers, but now we need to get you to be more strategic thinkers. And this is a place where you can start problem solving the implementation plan. So what are some of the elements of that, Rick?
So creating an implementation plan, what we teach is there are really 3 questions that you want to make sure that you're asking yourselves to ensure that the strategic plan that you're building, there's a bridge to the implementation plan. The first, as we've been talking about, is the what. What do you hope to accomplish? You mentioned earlier the why as well, and I want to point out that the why is just as important because the why links you back to the company's mission, the values, the vision that you're trying to go to. In my background in biotech, many times the why was try and make a difference in the life of someone that's living with a rare disease. And that was a powerful why to be able to bring to the what as we're trying to develop our strategy. Once the what is answered and you have that, the second question you want to ask yourselves is the how. How will we plan to accomplish this task? This is the implementation plan. And finally, the bottom question you need to ask yourself is, how can we ensure the goal is achieved? This is measuring for success, making sure that the measurements are there so that you can go back if for some reason you're not hitting a chapter of goals. Is it a question with the strategy? Or is the strategy wrong and it's not linking to the implementation? You're not going to know the answers to those if you're not measuring the goal.
Where do you see some of the biggest blind spots, I guess, with people with the strategy up here and then trying to create the implementation plan? What are some of your experiences, Rick?
Yeah, so I think first off, you need to make sure that you have made choices in the strategy. Sometimes through the process, people don't make the choices they have to make, and therefore they're trying to be everything to everyone, and that's not going to work out.
So what I'm hearing, one of the first things is you got to, I call it emotional fortitude.
Yes.
Having the ability to make decisions without the emotion involved, but from a logic standpoint.
Right.
You know, the logic being, God, we've always done it. The emotion is, we've always done it. God, I started my business with this offering or whatever it may be. So I'm hearing one of the things is that you got to make sure as you're building it, you come with some more emotional fortitude.
Yes, you could have been doing something for 10 straight years. Now your strategy is saying that's not the direction you're going. Are you okay with not doing that thing you've been doing for 10 years that your life is built around?
And often we see this happen when companies are kind of stalled in their growth, or they feel like they're going in so many directions, or their service or product offerings got so diverse, and they feel like they're not making traction anywhere.
Right.
Often we realize that as part of it, they haven't done their strategy and
Right.
really saying, should we really be doing these things based on our marketplace and what we can offer? So I think when you think of those things, those hindering things, those are a couple of the big things we've seen.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I would say, Michael, you want to make sure that the implementation is tracked back to the strategy. And what I do is I take the strategy and you can chunk that out into strategic imperatives. And for each of those strategic imperatives, there are tactics. And you need to make sure that you don't have an implementation plan that doesn't track back to at least each of those strategic imperatives. If you can't get an implementation or an execution plan to track back, you probably should be asking yourself, should we be doing that?
That's good. So the next thing is the execution process. Now that you have the implementation plan, is the execution process.
Right, so this is what it would look like within an organization. So the first thing is you would develop the strategic plan. making the choices that we've been talking about. Where do you want to play? How do you want to win? Generally, that's 3 to 5 years out, looking at the strategic plan. Then what we say is, let's develop a 12-month or a 1-year implementation plan. Usually that's called an operating plan. And that gets at the nitty-gritty, which has ties back to the strategy. Then we mentioned you don't have an unlimited amount of resources in your organization. Now you need to make choices about your resources. You have dollars, you have people. They need to be aligned to the implementation plan. In this case, there's going to be some tough decisions sometimes, Michael, because you may have people in the organization that aren't necessarily aligned to that implementation plan. You may have dollars that you've been spending in one area that isn't necessarily aligned either. So you need to go forward and be able to do that. Then once you do that, each of the individual plans, and I would say department plans as well.
Yeah, because it's really, when you're talking about individual, we're probably talking department plans.
Exactly.
Right?
You need to really be really good about the process of making sure that the activities that they're doing align back to the company implementation plan. And again, if for some reason a department or an individual is doing something you can't track back to one of your strategic imperatives or something in the plan, you need to ask yourself, is this something we really should be doing? Because you've been doing it in the past isn't good enough. Right. Because you may have adjusted your strategy and adjusted your plan. And then certainly we talked about continuing to walk the tightrope to measure what you're doing. And if things aren't going well from a standpoint, you need to be asking yourself, are we just not executing it well, or is the strategy wrong? And what I found over my experience, Michael, happens many times is you don't give the strategic plan enough time to take place. Some people want results right away. Right. And sometimes it just takes time to work through the strategy.
Especially the larger your organization. Because it has to work through more systems, more people, and if you're used to growing quickly, in a smaller organization, sometimes it takes a bit longer to get implementation, but you got to be patient and persistent, I call it, right?
Yeah, and if you're choosing targets, you're developing a value proposition, it's going to take time to reach out to those targets with the value proposition for that to happen. And sometimes after 3 or 4 months, if you're not getting where you need to get to, I've seen some people shift back to the old way of doing things, something different. And sometimes you really just need to give it time.
Now, all you leaders out there, we just went through this whole process. I know myself as a leader, I'm looking at this can be overwhelming. This is a lot. It's a lot of planning before execution. It's putting the systems in place to support your execution. But I can promise you this, if you truly want to create a profitable, scalable business, and you want to grow, and you want to be playing your role as a leader, part of your job as a leader is getting out of the day-to-day and helping to lead the strategic and planning process. This process could be a 3, 6, 9, 12-month process, especially on a large size of an organization, based on the size of your organization. I've seen a lot of times, I always tell people it takes a good 3 years to get a strong strategic planning process in place. It doesn't happen overnight. Most people don't want to spend the time on it, and most people want it to happen overnight. In addition, I think number 5, we constantly measure and walking that tightrope. We believe that every 90 days, you should be evaluating how you're doing against your plan. Are there adjustments we need to make? And the reason being that new things happen. You might get new competitors. Maybe one of your products had to go through a recall. Maybe a big thing happened in the marketplace that has shifted. Right. Maybe something happened to your employee base. And what happens usually with these plans, that are these implementation plans trying to grow your business against that strategy, is that these day-to-day tactical issues come up and detract. Everyone goes back to day-to-day tactical issues and they stay away from the strategy. And so that 90-day evaluation allows you to say, maybe we need to adjust some of our plans right now to get this done so we can continue moving forward on our strategy. Or you may choose to, again, decide not to deal with some of those things right now because you feel the other things you're working on for your strategy are more important. I think it's one of the important elements. You know, we always talk about working on your business versus in your business. The reality is, as leaders of your organization, you need time to work on your business versus in your business. And this is working on your business. And I can't stress that enough. And it's a thing that we see will accelerate an organization or will hold an organization back. Because if you have this plan, if you communicate it to your employees, I don't care if you're 500 employees or 5 employees, your team will be more focused. They know why we're doing what we're doing, and they will become higher performing. I promise you that. So we have time. We have a couple questions here that are frequently asked questions we usually get around this. So one thing is, what time frame should my strategic plan cover? And Rick, you probably agree, probably depending on your industry, there's some of the fast changing industries, and certain markets might do a 2 to 3 strategy viewpoint, the strategic plan. Other folks might go to a 5-year and then work back with that implementation plan. I don't know if you would agree with that.
No, I actually don't like necessarily to tie a specific timeline to strategy, because strategy isn't necessarily a time frame. But we did talk about the fact that when you develop your strategy, you need to give it time to see if it's working or not.
Right.
So because of that, generally it's a several years time frame versus an operational plan would be a year. And as Michael mentioned, breaking that out into quarters, since people have short range memories, it's best to be able to do that as well.
The other question we often hear is, how often should I review and update my plan? And I think we're going to talk about that. I believe every year you should come back to your strategy and evaluate. Has it changed? Is the marketplace? What do we learn? Have our clients changed? And your implementation should be evaluated every 90 days.
Yes.
Because if you can, it's kind of it's a model called dynamic planning. It's about 12 years old now. And dynamic planning, the old days where you do your plan for the whole year, and so all fall from like August through November, everybody's working on budgets and plan, they get it done, and then by April or May, the plan doesn't even make sense anymore because all changes in the marketplace, right? So our belief is that dynamic planning every 90 days on the implementation plan is critical, and every year on the strategy.
Yes, agreed.
And the last thing is, who should be involved in the process? So there's probably different layers involved at different stages of the process. From the strategy component, it should be the leadership of the organization. You might pull in marketing, you may pull in other folks within the organization that might have data or information. But to me, it's kind of the leadership of the organization. Could be the C-suite, depending on your size of the organization. Could be the executive team with some key leaders, along with the C-suite, really coming up with that strategy plan. And then you come to your managers and the team to start focusing on the implementation plan. What's broken? What's not going? What's going to prevent us from being able to achieve these things? And then everybody should have a tie-in in their individual role on a quarterly basis to their department goals that are tied into their company goals to tie into the strategic plan. So, in essence, at some point, everybody should be aware of it and involved with it, but there's probably different stages of their involvement.
I would agree. I've been involved where there's been too few people, so you didn't have enough people coming in with the diversity of opinions. And I've also been in rooms where there are too many people to ultimately be able to make a decision.
Many cooks in the kitchen.
And I would emphasize up front, you really need to have good data. So that's the market research people, the data people up front, because if you don't get that right up front, then everything else is going to flow from there. So the importance is getting the right people involved from the very beginning.
So if you're interested in getting help with your strategic planning and implementation plan process, we'd love to help you. Please reach out to us here at Collaboration. Also, there'll be a white paper associated with this as well, somewhere on the site, probably down or sideways probably. And then bottom line, strategy is about focusing on your customers to ultimately increase the company's revenue. Remember, the customers are your revenue drivers. Not your salespeople, not your marketing folks. Your customers are your revenue drivers. So that's what strategy should be focused on. Planning is really about creating internal initiatives built to support the needs of your customers. Each facet takes time. Do it well, and you'll achieve breakthrough performance for you and your organization. So thank you for your time today. Take the time as leaders to really grow your business. And you'll be amazed by putting time into the plan, time into the strategy, you can accelerate your growth. Thank you very much for collaboration.